Madam Chair, the recording has begun.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Let me go ahead and call this session of the Oregon Aviation Board into session. And Kathy, if you could do us a favor and do a roll call of the 4 board members attending.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Meeker,
Here.
Tom Kruger,
Here.
Hilda Pareo,
Here.
John Barcelou,
Here.
and said that they will not be attending today and send notification were Vince Granado and Doug Ferguson. And Madam Chair, I believe you deemed that their absence is excused.
There are Vince is on his scheduled vacation, and Doug is back at the doctor's office with his sinuses acting up again. So if you want to drop him a note out there in internet land and tell him that we hope he feels better, that would be great. Okay, before we get started, real quick, anybody that hasn't done so already, if you could mute your phones, that would be great. Just as a courtesy to everyone attending. And then for everyone's awareness, the item 6, it was a discussion on tall structure fees. That is not ready to go quite yet. So we're going to move that one to the October meeting as long as no board member disagrees. Real quick, let me put it out there. Any board member have any desire to talk about tall structures now, or can we wait until October? Okay, hearing no objections, go ahead and push it to October. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. The only thing we have on there for today is the meeting minutes from the July 15th, 2021 meeting, and you've had a chance to look at those minutes. Is there any board member who would like to pull something or correct something from those meeting minutes? Okay, hearing no desire for a correction or discussion, let me see if I can get a motion for approval of the July 15th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Have a first motion by John and a second motion by Hilda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, note with that, please note that the consent agenda has been approved. And now, Kathy, on to the best part of the whole board meeting is the public comment period. And I'm going to turn that over to you to see who we have lined up to hear from.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Becky Breckenridge from the Oregon Pilots Association has asked to speak.
Good morning.
For the record, just want to ask if there are any elected officials who are willing to speak. So Becky, can I put you on hold for a second? I didn't have any identify themselves as they got on. Go ahead. Becky, the floor is Madam Chair.
Hi, good morning, Chair Meeker. As president of Oregon Pilots Association, I'm receiving numerous concerns from our membership for the care, upkeep, and maintenance of 3 of our airports. The 3 are Cascade Locks, Malino, and Tillamook. The issue at Cascade Locks is the grass is not consistently being mowed. At Malino, the PAPI lights are intentionally left off because the cottonwood trees have grown into the flight path of the north approach. Tillamook, there's no notum about the apparent lack of fuel in the tank. The sight tube to the fuel tank has been bone dry for quite some time, apparently. Also, there has been in Tillamook equipment parked on the displaced threshold runway 19 with no notum. These are just a few of the concerns that our membership come to me with, and I can offer more written detail about each of these airports if you need to have that in hand. I guess my question is when I'm reported these issues, is this the proper place and time to address them, or would you rather me do it a different way?
Becky, it's whatever works well for you. But if you want to drop us an email, if that makes it easier, because I know you have to wait because we have board meetings every other month. So if you want to do it quicker, drop us an email. That's great. Give us a phone call.
Okay.
On Cascade Locks, getting the grass grown or cut, I'm going to turn that over to Tony. I know we've had an issue of getting the rig and the guy up there. So any idea, Tony, when we can swing by and get that taken care of? That's kind of relatively easy fix, as is probably working to relay the information about the cottonwoods.
Yeah, so at Cascade Locks, the grass was mowed in June, and the airport was completely mowed in June. And then we did receive some photos of the shoulders with some weeds that were growing just along the shoulders of the runway, and that was mowed, I believe, Monday of this week. So
Okay.
the airport has had a little bit of maintenance recently, but yeah.
Okay, and Cascade Locks, we kind of have a history of trying to, we're just a little bit undermanned in our ops department, and Cascade Locks unfortunately has a history that we will try to make better. Malino, that's the first I ever heard about the Malino thing. What's with the cottonwood trees?
So we're aware of the obstructions at Aurora. I'm sorry, Malino. There's both, but at Malino specifically, there are some trees that are penetrating the approach slope for the runway, and that PAPI has been turned off because it would put aircraft in the path of obstructions, and that's a known issue that has been the case for going on a year and a half now. And that is part of our ongoing project to remove those obstructions so we can get the PAPI turned back on.
Okay, are the trees on our property or are they on a neighbor's property?
Partially both. So there are some trees on our property that we're looking at moving on right away, and there are some other off-airport trees that are part of our bigger project for obstruction removal.
Okay, but we are looking at, at least, I mean, for our property, I know how to run a chainsaw. So I mean, I could take care of that around the line for you really on our property. Can't do anything about the neighbor's property. But anyways, if we could take a look into at least doing what we can. And is the neighbor amenable? Have we checked in with him, or any idea?
We believe so. And we still have to wait for outside of nesting season, but we're planning to move on those outside of nesting season, which is after September this year.
Okay. And then Tillamook, I don't know what we can do about it. Betty, your thoughts on Tillamook?
We can convey those concerns to the Port of Tillamook and to the airport manager there. Michelle Bradley is the manager for Tillamook. We can certainly share those concerns with her, Becky, and but it's not a state-owned airport, so we can't, compel her to change it. But we'll be happy to convey those concerns to her.
Thank you.
All right. And like I said, you can make your choice if you want to continue, or just drop us an email and we can forward on that. But email is probably better because we can track it. It's actually something written. But I'll leave it up to whatever is most convenient for y'all, or it may be a combination of all these things.
Thank you.
And then thanks for bringing your concerns. Appreciate it.
I have a question, Martha, if that's all right.
Go ahead, John.
Becky, did you reach out to the Tillamook folks, to the Tillamook Airport manager?
No, I have not. This is recently acquired news to me. So to be honest, I haven't fact checked any of the Tillamook things because I just got the email this morning. So yeah.
I would just encourage you to reach out to her.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, Kathy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have no one else signed up for public testimony at this time, and I have no raised hands. So I would call on folks who would like to address the board at this time to either use the raised hand function or do some other means of getting the attention of myself or Chair Meeker. Going once.
Do you see Wendy?
Wendy's got her hand up.
I did not see that, but now I do. Wendy Witzel.
Hello, I just wanted to chime in about the fuel at Tillamook. I'm a pilot and I've been at Sun River, Scappoose, Troutdale, and they're all having trouble with fuel. It's a kind of a known issue. I think the fires are, and actually Wenatchee was having trouble with jet fuel. The fires, there's an increased demand because of the fires. And then the provider of fuel, I think their name is Epic, is overwhelmed and they're having trouble with trucks and most importantly, drivers. So the fuel in our area is tricky. And then I noticed there was a national article written that it's a known issue throughout the West. So I wouldn't be too hard on Tillamook. I think it's a known issue.
And Wendy, I've heard the same thing. It's all the way throughout the West. And we actually had to see if we can get some fuel to help those firefighting operations going on because of lack of Jet A. So interesting situation we have with the lack of truck drivers that are certified to move fuel around the United States. It's just it's affecting operations, and I know the governor's office is aware of it. I've read it on the national level, like you've mentioned before. I don't know when we're going to see an absolute resolution to this. So it's a troubling predicament. I will say that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilor Joanne Linville of Wilsonville.
Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chairman Meeker. I was just indicating that I was present. There was the question about whether elected officials were present or not. And so I just wrote my name in the chat. I don't have a public comment at this point. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. We're always glad to have you here.
Madam Chair, I have no one else signed up in the chat or with a raised hand. So at this point, hearing no other comments, I'll turn it back over to you for the next agenda item.
Okay, great. We have a director's update, and yesterday Betty relayed me that we had a little bit of action with our Court of Appeals ruling on Aurora. So I'm going to turn it over to her because I think that will have some effect on our next board meeting after this is going to be in October. But I do believe for the board members who are attending that the current action on the Court of Appeals is going to mean we're going to have to meet earlier. So, but with that, let me hand it over to Betty for a quick recap, and then we can talk about future actions.
Okay, good morning, Chair Meeker, members of the board. I'm going to attempt to share my screen with you before I do the update. Screen 3. Okay. Okay. We practiced this yesterday and it worked, and of course today it does not work. Do you
No,
see?
we have it, Betty. It looks
Got
good.
it.
Okay, you got it. So
Yes.
it says, okay,
Yep, it works.
all right. So, let me advance. Okay. Okay, you should see something that says presentation agenda.
Nope.
Nope.
And
Yes.
it's-
Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's going on at the federal level, at the state level, and then talk a little bit about the effect of the pandemic on fuel sales, give you an Aurora update, and then talk about what you just mentioned on the jet fuel shortage, and then end with a, what am I doing wrong? Okay.
Your screen share, it should say
It
that
should be.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
why is it not doing it?
I don't know. Okay. We'll try. What we want is
Screen 3,
this one, right? Two.
screen 2. I thought we said to do screen 3. Okay, I don't care, just anything will work.
Yeah, it's hard with 3 screens too. Okay, we're gonna go to beginning.
Show. What am I doing?
Share the screen again, and then just click on that. And
How do I can't get to
Okay,
that.
you show us.
Good
I
grief.
just want the other screen.
Okay. I apologize. We practiced this yesterday and it worked, and then now, of course, it's not. Okay. I did. Anything. Okay, just
Okay,
anything.
okay.
Okay, and then
So you can advance with
this. Okay, I apologize. I think we've got it. So, okay, first thing I want to talk to you about is you may have heard seen some news media reports recently talking at the federal level about a potential funding package called the infrastructure bill. There's two portions of it, a soft and a hard infrastructure, and the portion that's being debated on the Senate floor this week is the hard infrastructure proposal. And it's a $1.2 trillion package. Included in that is $25 billion for airports. $5 billion of that is for upgrades to facilities and equipments for the air traffic control tower system. $20 billion of that is for airports. Of that $20 billion, $5 billion is set aside for terminal projects, and the remaining $15 billion is for all the other projects. Of the $15 billion, $12.4 billion would go to the commercial service airports, $2.5 billion to general aviation airports, and then there's a carve out of $100 million for contract towers. For all of those projects, or those types of projects, except for the contract tower, there will be a local match. For the contract tower repairs and upgrades, there is not a match. So this is currently on the Senate floor for debate this week. And then once it clears the Senate floor, it will have to go back to the House for approval and then onto the president. So it's still got a ways to go, but this is what they're discussing and thinking about in Washington. So there's and that would all be new money on top of the existing federal grant programs. So within FAA, there is a grant program that's been around for about 20 years now, and it's called the Small Community Air Service Development Grant Program. It assists smaller commercial service airports with recruitment and retention of airline service. So this year they had 78 applications. They awarded 22 of them for a total of 18 million. And the award size ranged from 450,000 up to a max of 1 million. And we're pleased to share with you that one Oregon airport was selected, and that was Redmond, and they got an $800,000 grant. So, and then within the FAA has another grant program called the Airport Improvement Program Grant, and that funds capital improvements at the federally eligible airports, and Oregon has 57 of those. So just within the past month, the FAA issued 2 grants to state-owned airports for fencing at Independence and Cottage Grove. And these, the bids came in significantly higher than what our engineer's estimate was. And the FAA was able to find additional funding to fully fund these 2 projects. And they funded it at 100%. So we wanted to note that to the board and share our thanks to the FAA, not only for funding it at 100%, but also being able to find the additional funds so that we can complete these 2 projects. And I'm very pleased to share with you that Connect Oregon is coming back. For those of you that might not be familiar with Connect Oregon, this is a grant program that is sponsored by the Oregon Department of Transportation. It is for the transportation modes other than highway. So that means aviation, marine, rail, transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and multimodal. And so, you know, it's been around for about at least 10 years. And this year, there's going to be $46 million available, excuse me. And for the first time, it's going to be for 3 modes only: aviation, marine, and rail. And bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and multimodal moved into a different program. So all 46 million will be available just to the 3 modes. The applications will be due starting mid-September through October. So coming up here in about 6 weeks, they'll begin accepting applications for it, with awarding planned for spring of 22. There is a 30% local cash match requirement. And as in previous Connect Oregon rounds, the State Aviation Board will once again serve as the review committee for the aviation proposed projects. So again, this program's been around for, I think, 7 or 8 years now. They've awarded $477 million so far. Out of the 603 applications, they funded about half of them at 285. And as you see on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see what the splits look like. And aviation averaged over the first 6 rounds, about 23% of the total amount of funds granted. And then you can see marine and rail, and then the other three modes as well. So our average is about 23%. And then this year, because it's just being restricted to those 3 modes, I am hoping that aviation will see a larger percentage of the total grant funds. And my hope and my goal would be to see us get about $20 million out of that 46 available. I know that may sound a little bit ambitious, but I think it's achievable in that there's only 3 modes that are going to be competing in it. All 3 modes are important modes, but I'd like to see aviation do better than what it's done in previous rounds. So for the airport managers and the consultants who are on this this meeting today, I would encourage you to, for airports, if you have projects that you want considered, to apply for it. Consultants, if you will help us get out the word to the airports that this is a funding opportunity. You know, we haven't had this opportunity in about 3 years now, and we certainly want to see all of the Oregon airports take advantage of this and see if we can improve our percentage of awarded grants. So, but again, there is a 30% local cash match for this. So I will pause for a moment. I see Martha has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to, there was an issue with aviation. I sat on the review board for this up in Portland, or I guess in Salem, when we had the open meeting across the board. And aviation projects did well, but it was interesting because those airports who tried to attach their program to a rail project did poorly, and I'll tell you why. So you've got some kind of you got an airport project, they're trying to tail it into a multimodal. You would think that would do well, but what happened was then each one of the submodal boards had a chance to review and rank all their projects. So before it got to the main review, which is where we all determined the ranking, each review board, sub-review board got to review their projects and rank them. So an airport in tie with a multimodal rail, what happened was the rail committee just voted, they ranked theirs based on who could move the most material. As you might imagine, an airplane compared to a rail car, not one of the aviation projects that was tied to a rail project scored anywhere in the top 50% of the rail ranking. So when it got to the overall master board, they were knocked down just because of the rail rating that they received. So I would ask that we pass that information out to all the applicants, that it's not necessarily a good thing to be tied to other projects. You just need to know how they're going to be ranked overall. And we need, probably as ODA, need to have an understanding of how the ranking process is going to happen, because sometimes the modal projects get the boards get equal weighting. Sometimes they don't get equal weighting. Sometimes their weighting is cut down to 10% and the overall board rating is higher. We just need to know how we're going to be scored at the ultimate review board. And that's all I have. Thanks, Betty.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions from board members? And Kathy, I cannot see everybody on my screen, so you're gonna have to tell me if anybody else has a hand up.
We're good right now. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions on Connect Oregon, I'm going to switch to a smaller but equally important grant program that's offered by the Department of Aviation, and that is our CORE grant program, which provides financial assistance to airports on their matching share for their federally funded projects, on resiliency and preparedness projects, and also on economic development projects. So we will be opening that up for applications here in just under a month. And the deadline for applying is the 24th of September. The board will be approving those grants, we expect, in February. There's $2 million available. And so the maximum grant that you can get under this grant program is $150,000. So again, excuse me, we'd like to get the word out to everyone that that this program will be opening up here in about a month for applications, and encourage the Oregon airports to apply for this program, excuse me, as well as for Connect Oregon. So if there's are there any questions on the core? And we'll have a presentation a little bit later in this meeting from Andrea on more details on the core grant program. So then moving on, our grant program is made possible by a tax on fuel sales of aviation fuel in Oregon. Of that, and the majority of fuel sold in Oregon is jet fuel. So I'm just going to focus this slide on Jet A, on jet fuel sales. So of that 3 cents a gallon, 2 cents goes into the grant program, and 1 cent pays for operation of the agency. And I wanted just to share with you briefly the impact that the pandemic has had on our revenues and on fuel sales in Oregon. And comparing 2019 pre-pandemic to 2020 and 2021, if you look in that center column of 2020, you can see starting about April of 2020 is when we really started seeing the impact on fuel sales in Oregon on Jet A. From 2019 to 2020, in 2020, it dropped by 70% at the very beginning of the pandemic. And you can see for the remainder of the year, it kind of started improving, and then it went up and down a little bit, but through, excuse me, through the remainder of 2020. And then when you look at 2021, and the farthest left column, it says pre-pandemic. So comparing the 21 fuel numbers to pre-pandemic in 2019, you can see it's a slow, steady, gradual improvement to where we are today, which was June is the latest numbers we have available. And so fuel sales have recovered to about 85% of what they were pre-pandemic. So we're seeing a steady improvement. We are hopeful that improvement will continue to improve, or at least stay at the levels that is at right now, and that we won't see another decline in it. But that is a possibility as we go into the fall and winter months. If there's a travel slowdown, or if there are other factors that affect fuel sales, the possibility still exists that we might start seeing a decline again. But at present, for the first 6 months of this year at least, we're seeing a slow and steady improvement coming back. And this is why we are able to offer a grant program. Plus, the legislature this year gave us permission to shut down the ROAR grant program and transfer those monies into the core program. And we will be doing that in the end of September. And that is also why we're able to provide a grant program, excuse me, this year of about $2 million. So if there's any questions on this slide, I'm not seeing any. Okay. So just briefly to touch on Aurora Airport, as a recap of where we're at on the legal challenges. We had the initial legal challenge was filed in November of 2019. We had in the Land Use Board of Appeals. The LUBA ruling occurred about a year later in December of 2020. That ruling was appealed to the Court of Appeals. And Court of Appeals initial ruling was on June 16th of this year. There was a petition for reconsideration of portions of the Court of Appeal ruling. And that petition for reconsideration was decided and issued an opinion issued yesterday. And that ruling, yesterday's ruling reaffirmed the June 16th ruling with some non-substantive minor word corrections to it. So the reconsideration ruling yesterday starts the clock, the 35-day clock on the timeline for filing a Supreme Court petition. And the deadline for that would be September 8th. So at last month's board meeting, we heard from several people and groups urging the board to consider a Supreme Court appeal. Since that time, we have been exploring different remedies for repairing what the Court of Appeals ruling said. Several of the issues that were in the original Court of Appeals ruling were procedural and must be addressed via remand to LUBA. So we will be going back to LUBA on many of the procedural issues that were identified in the Court of Appeals ruling. But looking at the issues that that were raised by the through the fence business interests, we see that there's a possibility for three different remedies for it. One is judicial, which is the Supreme Court petition. There's another, an administrative remedy working through the Department of Land Development and Conservation and their commission, which is the Land Conservation and Development Commission, or LCDC, to do rulemaking. So that is an option. And then there's the legislative option. So we are looking at all three of those options right now. At the executive session last week, the board asked for some additional information on the potential impact to public use airports. We've sent out a survey to all 97 public use airports. And as of this morning, we've gotten about a half a dozen responses back. And I expect over the next few days, we'll get responses from the remainder of them, and we will share that with the board once we have those. So again, the LUBA case, the remand back to LUBA, there's several items within that that we will need to address with LUBA, and we don't have a date for that yet. And then on the circuit court cases, those are paused until further notice. Okay, we have our attorney with us. If any board member has any questions on those cases. We have any questions? And Kathy, you're going to have to help me again. I can't see the full screen. Do any board members have questions? Chair Meeker?
Yeah, so basically what we need to do is, as Betty mentioned, to boil this down to real quick here, is the clock has started. You heard her say that. So we can't wait till October. Thus, we need to get another board schedule, probably an executive session. I don't know, maybe an open session after that, because we're going to have to come to decision, and we have to give the decision an open session. So brass tacks, we need to schedule a session for the end of September or the end of August, probably, so that Tom can make it. What other board members? Anybody object to a session toward the end of August?
Okay, Chair Meeker, we may need to do it prior to the end of August because of some deadlines that Department of Justice has.
Okay.
And so I would ask that our board secretary, Kathy, poll the members to see availability over the next couple of weeks, if we can, and not wait to the very end of August. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. We just need to make sure that we have the data, because we need as much data of that data for what happens at airports. So this is kind of a balancing act between getting us into a timely decision, but still allowing data to flow in. So we're going to have to hit that sweet spot.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions from any other board members? And Kathy, you're going to help me. I can't see the full screen.
I don't.
Oh, there, John.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no questions at this time. This is Tom.
Okay, or Hilda?
No questions at this time. This is Hilda.
Okay, all right, thank you. So then Also wanted to give you an update on the master plan and where that's at. So the contract is over at Department of Justice for review. We have started looking for locations where we can hold the meetings. We plan to hold them up in the Aurora area, and we're looking for venues that can hold up to 200 people. We will be expanding the PAC membership. We will not be using a separate citizen advisory group. We're just going to keep everybody together in one group in the PAC. We expect that the kickoff meeting, this whole process is going to take probably about 2 years to do. And at some point, we would like to hold in-person meetings again. But the kickoff meeting, we expect to have sometime in September or October. Likely at this point, looks like it's going to be a virtual one, followed by the first of the, I think there's 7 or 8 PAC meetings. And that first one we think is going to probably be around the November timeframe. And then, of course, all meetings will be open to the public, whether they're virtual or in person. So that's kind of where we're at on the Aurora master plan. Any questions from board members? Okay, then seeing none, I'll move on to, just a few minutes ago, we heard briefly about the issue with fuel availability. And I just want to touch briefly on, this is an issue that we've been dealing with all summer. Initially in June, when it was first brought to our attention, the issue was drivers you have to have a special endorsement, a hazardous materials endorsement to be able to transport bulk fuel. There was a shortage of drivers in June. Then in July, what we were seeing, it was not just the drivers, it was the trucks, and then product availability. There were intermittent interruptions at some of the major, at least 2 of the major refineries in the Midwest. Those production issues have been resolved, but it still is an issue nationwide of lack of drivers to get the product out to the airports. So, I mean, everywhere from, yesterday I was hearing it was from Nantucket to California and everywhere in between, there are spot shortages occurring. And right now it's driven by lack of driver availability. Part of that is because of the increased demand due to firefighting activity and also to the increase in commercial flights. So we're hearing reports that rationing is occurring, and that some airlines are advising or requiring their flight crews to tanker fuel, meaning they carry enough fuel from getting point A to point B, but now they also have to carry enough fuel to get to point C. And so when you tanker in extra fuel, it impacts how much passengers and cargo and other loads you can carry. So we've seen spot outages throughout Oregon, primarily related to the firefighting activities. These are again, they're spot outages. It's not impacting every airport the same. We're seeing, excuse me, especially in Eastern Oregon, the airports that are supporting firefighting activity, it's an issue of they can't get enough product and also limited capacity to store product. And I'm thinking particularly in La Grande, where they have limited storage capacity, then plus just having a challenging time getting sufficient amount of fuel to support the firefighting activity that is being hosted at their airports. So what we've been doing all summer is working with Oregon Department of Energy and the Oregon Military Department on providing data to them on which airports are supporting firefighting activities, what is everybody's that has Jet A storage capability, what's their capacity, and then what is their current inventory. And then working with them if there are, for spot outages, finding solutions for those, whether it's borrowing or buying fuel from another adjacent airport or getting something an extra delivery tankered in. So the question earlier, I think from Chair Meeker, was how much longer is this going to be? My guess is going to be until another 6 or 8 weeks, until the temperatures cool down, the rains come back, and the fires stop. So there is an end in sight, but it is, it's still 6 or 8 weeks away. And then by next summer, this may have corrected itself in that they can resupply the driver pool. And again, it's not so much an issue of product, it's a shortage of drivers. So I hope that helped in the conversation. Was there any questions on this one?
I have a question.
Okay, hi, Tom.
Yeah, is any of this being impacted by rules and regulations on the drivers, or has that been addressed?
That has been addressed. The governor has addressed that. She has the ability to, they call it declaring the conflagration declaration that allows rules to be relaxed on driver time. So yes, the governor has done that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move on because I see we are way over schedule. And so I will, the last thing I have for you is a request from Representative McLean, who is the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Transportation. And that is the committee that hears all transportation related bills, including the aviation ones. And she is asking for board input on a proposed legislative concept for the 22 short session, which will start in February. She is suggesting that the committee will sponsor the bill and it will address best practices in airport planning in Oregon. And to give you an example of what a potential best practice might look like, it might say that we encourage all public use airports in Oregon to have a master plan. Or something along those lines. What are some best practices for airport planning for Oregon's public use airports? So she would like to get some board input as to what might be in that bill. The session does not start till February, but the legislative concepts have a deadline due date for legislative council of November 19th. So Chair McLean would like to start having a draft ready by the end of October. And so I'm thinking at our October board meeting, this is perhaps something that the board might want to weigh in and give Rep. McLean some guidance on. So are there any questions on this one? Chair Meeker?
Hey, Betty, why don't we just put this on the agenda for the board strategic meeting, and let's just give it a good hour discussion. And in the meantime, if we could dig up what other states have, I would imagine that there's a lot of work on this already done. I know California has a list of aviation planning best practices. I imagine we can probably find some really good ideas to pass along to her.
Okay, be happy to do that. Okay, any other board members?
I agree. I think just having some kind of draft or something ahead of time, it certainly would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, John. Okay, so if there's no other questions, that's the end of my presentation. I apologize, we're running very, very late, and I will turn it over to Kristen is up next with the finance report. Me. I'm trying.
I'll wait for you, Betty, to stop sharing your screen, and then I'll start sharing my screen. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. Okay, so good morning, Chair Meeker, members of the board. I have a few things to go over with you today. First, I'm going to talk to you about the board survey, and then I'm going to give you a real high level jet fuel tax revenue snapshot that relates to the budget. And then at the end, you'll be voting on the 21-23 legislatively approved budget that we call the LAB. So for the board survey, I'll be sending all of the board members an email this month. and it'll have a link to a survey in SurveyMonkey. So there'll be 16 questions. I send this to you every year. The questions relate to our KPM, which is the key performance measure for the percent of best practices met by the board. And so these questions, we actually didn't come up with them ourselves. They were developed by DAS and LFO, and they were based on the best management practices by boards and commissions. So all boards do receive this same survey. And so they based it on 5 critical functions of boards, which are executive director selection, expectations and feedback, strategic management, strategic policy development, fiscal oversight, and board management. And I wanted to just give you a snapshot of the questions you'll actually be getting. And most of them are really straightforward, but I just wanted to touch base on a few of them, especially our new board member, Tom Kruger. You might not be familiar with some of the terminology in some of these, so you might not know how to answer these. So for the first 2, these are talking about the director's performance expectations and her annual performance feedback. So in 2020, the board conducted a director evaluation and went over the performance expectations with the director. We also did a staff survey at this time, and this became part of the feedback that the director received. This might be a further discussion that the board might want to decide when they're going to do the next director expectations and feedback for her. Number 4 talks about an annual performance progress report. So this is a report that I send to the board at the end of every year, and it goes over all of the key performance measures. Let's see, number 7 talks about the agency's policy option packages. So these are what we call the POPs. And so we develop these with the board every 2 years, and then they become part of the budget process. If we want to add anything or make any changes to the agency in the budget, we add these as POPs in our budget. And then that goes through the whole legislative approval and board approval too. Number 8 talks about reviewing budgets. So we'll be doing that today. And number 9 talks about the board reviewing key financial information. And then if we ever had any audit findings, we always share those with the board. Other than that, I think all of the questions are pretty straightforward, but I'll give you an opportunity to ask if there's any board discussion on any of the questions, or if you have any questions for me on any of these. Okay, go ahead, Chair Meeker.
Just to check, we are current on everything. We're going to do the executive director performance. We're going to do an update on it in October. Okay. But everything else is current, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Is there any other questions on the board survey? And if, as you're going through it, if you have any questions for me, just feel free to give me a call and I can help you out. Okay, so next I wanted to give you a higher level jet fuel tap snapshot. So Betty already went over the monthly detail, but this is more relating to the budget. So here we have as the base for you, I wanted to put the 17-19 biennium because that was pre-pandemic. So, and the economy was looking really good there. So our agency received a total of about 12 million in jet fuel tax. And so how this breaks down, we receive 3 cents for jet fuel tax per gallon. So ASAP receives 2 of those cents. And then Operation and PMP, they split the other cent. So Operation actually gets 55% of that and PMP gets 45% of that. So in 1921, when the pandemic hit, our total went down to about 9 million for the agency. So in this next column, I show you what the reduction was from 17-19. So it was about a $3 million reduction for the agency as a whole and about 24%. And so here you can see how that breaks down into each of the program areas that are funded by the jet fuel tax, how much down each of those were. So the 21-23 forecast, this is what we use to complete our 21-23 budget. So with that forecast, we were looking at about 10 million. So we're seeing about a $1.6 million reduction from 17-19 or about 14%. And so that with that forecast, the forecaster who works on it, he aligns it with the current national forecast. And so when you look at it monthly, what you'll see is for personal travel, he's expecting it to continually be increasing every month and then have a full personal travel recovery by the summer of 2022. And then he also had an assumption that business travel, which accounts for about 12% of travel, would be permanently diminished. And so that's why you're still seeing a reduction, even though personal travel is assumed to be up to complete levels. And so whenever we build the budget, we have to go off of these forecasts. And we never know until we're into the budget if they're, how true they actually are. So what we're planning on doing is just watching the forecast really closely and watching the actuals. If we see the actuals are a lot higher than what the forecast came in at, we'll have an opportunity to make adjustments, possibly during a future short session. Okay, so that leads us to the summary of the 21-23 LAB that you'll be voting on. So it's comprised of 3 bills. So we start here with the agency budget bill. So that was about 23 million. So if we had that alone, that would be a very small budget for us. Luckily, we were able to add the sunset removal bill, House Bill 2434, which added about 4.3 million to the ASAP program. This also added 230,000 to operations. So that's the 5% administrative funds that we received for operations. Then at the very end of session, the capital construction bill went through. So we were able to add another 3.3 million for the capital construction electric and runway project at Let's Bay. And then there were some small end of session adjustments for the agency. That's a statewide, just technical adjustments that went through. And that's how we ended up with our 21-23 LAB. So in total, we had about $31 million for the LAB. Now on the next slide, I'd like to show you just so you have some perspective of how that compares to our 1921 LAB for each program area. So for operations, so that is almost all of our staff are in operations. It's also administration of the agency, planning, and airport operations and maintenance. So we were down about 6% from the 1921 LAB. So this actually was pretty good compared to the revenue deficits that we were looking at. And so the way we were able to get it to be only down by 6%, we did receive some federal money from the coronavirus relief funds. And then also in the budget, we put in a transfer from ROAR of 600,000 directly to operations to help to offset some of that revenue loss. The next program, aircraft registration. So the budget here is just the administration of our aircraft registration program. And the revenue there we use for the match for grants. So that program actually looked pretty good compared to last biennium because we didn't see a loss of revenue there. PMP is the program that probably took the largest hit in all of our programs. It was down 25% from last time's budget. And this was because this program is 100% funded by fuel tax. And in 1921, even though the revenues were down, we kept the program at the same level because we had a pretty healthy cash balance and we were able to tap into that. But in 21-23, we really did see, we had to cut back on that program just to make up for that declining revenue. So we're hoping that when we build the next budget, we'll have that revenue back up to normal and we can totally get that program to 100% again. For GA entitlement, other funds. So this is the matching portion for our smaller projects. So that's any projects that we have that are under $1 million. So that budget stayed pretty close to the same. For ASAP, you'll notice that we have a huge increase in the budget in 21-23. So the reason for this is because when we passed House Bill 2434, the ROAR program had a very large cash balance, and we're now able to use that for core. So we wanted to make sure we increased that limitation so we could use that available cash. And then for operations federal fund and general aviation federal funds. So those are both projects that we planned with the FAA. So those are all money coming from the FAA. So we had a little bit of a slight increase in those from 1921. And then the capital construction, other funds, this is what I told you already is the Let's Bay project. This, you'll see a decrease from last budget because last time we had 3 projects planned, and this time we just have the 1. And here's another opportunity. If we have more projects that we do get FAA approval, we could also go to a future session and get those added to the budget. So overall, we had just a 1% decrease from the 1921 LAB. And we also have 13 positions. We have 12.59 FTE. And the 0.59 is because we have a seasonal employee who works like a little bit more than half of a year for us. And this is just the summary of the budget. So before you vote, do you have any questions for me about the LAB? Yes, Martha.
Real quick, when we get a structure going for the tall tower fee assessments, will that be called out separately in the budget? Because I noticed there's nothing in there currently, or at least not that I can see for the tall structures, the expected funds that we will receive from that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually it is included in the budget, but it's not included as an expenditure. And so what I showed you was an overview of all of our expenditures to our budget. We did include it as a revenue. So when that passed, it did add into our budget that revenue. And we didn't put it as an expenditure because either way, we are still incurring the expenditures of the program, whether we have the revenue or not.
All right. All right, fantastic then. Any other questions from board members?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, well, fantastic then. Well, we need to approve this so that we can get on with the legislative part of pushing this over to the folks in Salem. So with that, let me have, do I have a motion for the State Aviation Board to approve the legislative budget as presented?
I make a motion to approve it as presented.
All right, I have a first motion from Tom. Do I have
I'll second it.
I have a second from John. All those in favor of approving the budget as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing that, no, please know that the budget has been approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
A lot of good work in there.
Thanks, Christy.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we saw the numbers going down in PMP, and I guess we're going to hear a little bit more on that. Heather, how are we doing overall?
Hello. Yes, actually, we will. I have a little presentation for you. I'll share my screen in just a second. Because what I would like to do is get your approval to revise the PMP program a little bit. The PMP program has been basically the same. There we go. Since I've been here and since the beginning of the program, and it's had 3 regions, and the airports are spread out in those 3 regions. On this slide, you can see regions on the left-hand side where it says 1, 2, and 3. That's how the program has been since it was created. And with the fluctuation and just the limited amount of dollars, we've never been able to do maintenance at every airport in that region during each individual time period. We just haven't had the funds to do so. And then with the revenue challenges that we've had over the last few years, and especially last year, led me to have to really look at, is there a better way to maybe look at the state as a whole and see if we can get to more airports and shape the regions a little bit. So on the right-hand side, you see a map that has 4 regions. And the first region looks a little odd, right? It's long, but one of the reasons that that region is shaped that way is because the airports in that region, the pavement lasts the longest. The rate of decline of asphalt, the curve of decline is more flat. So it allows us to, it allows the capital improvements to actually last longer at those airports. So in creating a region that might have, if you will, on this slide shows maybe more airports in region 1 would actually be okay because those, the weather in those airports would actually is more beneficial, as opposed to region 2, 3, and 4, which is what we'd like to do, is make those a little bit smaller so that we could get to do more work during the PMP timing. So right now, regions 1, 2, and 3 are set up. Let's see, do you see the list of the airports in there that show Southwest region, Northwest region, and Central Eastern region? Do you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. What we would like to do is change it to add a 4th region. And like I said, add region 1, have a few more airports in that region. And then basically revamp region 2, 3, and add a 4th region to allow us to get to more work at those airports per the policy document. Yes, Martha.
How you group them. I got a question. Why does regrouping allow us to get more airports? Why can't we just go to more airports?
You mean, why do we need to keep them in the regions that they're at?
Yeah, you say, what is the basis? You've mentioned that you'd like to do this regrouping, which
so the regions are based upon climate and how asphalt deteriorates per that climate. And there was a 10-year study that talked about that. So that's why I group them like this.
Okay, so this is just your grouping by weather, basically.
Basically by climate. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to clarify.
Yeah, and then because we can't get to the entire state, and so there is a need to create a list or an area, if you will, to be able to say, this year we're going to these airports, the next year we're going to these airports, and the only way to do that based upon asphalt itself is to do it by the climate regions and how asphalt and how it deteriorates per that climate region. Sorry, let me go back. So the current policy was also included in the link, and that map, the original map, was on page 14. As Kristen alluded to, in the 1921 budget was approximately $2,183,000 for construction and engineering for that biennium. For this biennium, it's approximately $1,589,000 for construction and engineering, which is a pretty big reduction, almost $600,000. And this year, the FAA has finally, decided that they will no longer be participating with their 10% through non-primary entitlements. And while that's only an additional 10%, it is a significant hit for this program too. So the only way to deal with those was to take a different look at how we can provide better service to the airports, to give them basically the same with less money. So the new regions obviously were developed with the budget constraints, and in accordance with the 10-year study that talked about how important it is to maintain the asphalt per the regions of weather, if you will. So coastal airports, obviously the asphalt lasts longer. And then if you're all the way over in Eastern Oregon, where you're getting high heat and ice, you know, your asphalt's lasting 20 years max. The advantage of a new 4-region approach is regional contracting and scheduling efficiencies, simpler reporting for us because we won't be dealing with the FAA any longer, focused attention for all the airports in those specific regions. And now that we're not working with the FAA on this, our standards will more specifically meet the performance needs of those airports. And we'll also be able to do a few things that we haven't been able to do in the past and add more add-ons for stuff like striping, which is a very big need for airports, and some additional local add-ons that they need in their own budgets.
Heather, can I ask a question? Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Chair, can I ask a question? You okay with that? Martha? The question I have, you can go forward one slide, I think is the reason I'm asking this question, that we're able to focus a little bit more, going to Chairmaker's question. Is it because we're going from 3 years to 4 years now so instead of every year, every 3 years, those same 3 regions, it'll be 4 years. And so you'll be able to spread that out a little bit further?
Yes, that's part of it too. So the regions will be smaller except region 1, but we'll be getting to you every 4 years instead of every 3 years. But
okay.
That's, in looking at the models, there hasn't been any deterioration issue that in 1 more year wasn't going to be an issue. So
Okay,
I
that's
really
what I just wanted
looked
to
at,
confirm.
yeah.
I figured that's how you were able to do that. Thank you.
I really looked at all the models to see. Now, if we did it, if we added 5 regions, if you will, the models showed that there could be some additional degradation, and waiting an additional year might be problematic in the future. But just adding 1 more year between them wasn't going to have that same kind of issue. It showed just the same as having every 3 years as every 4 years.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So I am asking the board to allow me to update the pavement maintenance policy to reorganize the airports served through PMP into 4 geographic regions as presented, instead of the current 3 geographic regions.
Okay, well, let me open up. Does any board member have any concerns on what staff is proposing?
I think Heather had.
Okay. Any overall comments before that you want to add before because we need to make a motion on this. Okay, so
Heather,
we have a motion.
I'm sorry, just one more question. Heather, did you get a chance to talk to any of the airports about making this change or anything like that? Anybody give you any other comments?
I did not. I didn't get a chance to talk to any of the airports about making this change.
Okay. All right, thanks.
But overall, Heather, I guess the negative to this is if I'm an airport manager out there in somewhere, how does this really affect them? I mean, you're going to get to them when you get to them when you got funds.
That's true. So I guess the most negative piece would be you'll be seeing me every 4 years. But the most positive piece is you'll actually be seeing me probably more than you saw me prior, because with this, we should have the ability to hit more airports than we have had in the past.
And it's just simply a matter of we're free from the FAA constraints?
Yes.
Okay.
And the way that the funding shakes out. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any questions by board members? Any concerns? All right, well, with that then, we have a recommendation by staff and we need to make a vote. So if with with all discussion completed, is there a motion for the board to approve the proposed changes to the pavement maintenance program as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I
I'll second it.
I have a first motion by John and I have a second by Hilda. All those in favor of changing the pavement management program as presented, say aye.
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 And any opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing none opposed, the motion's approved. Thank you very much. And so then Heather, I think we stay with you for a little bit more information on how things are going out there.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Chair Maker. I just wanted to give you guys an update on planning, programs, and admin and let you know kind of what's going on in our world. Right now, Seth is super busy reviewing multiple land use and tall structure requests from multiple crane operators and municipalities for developments. We've seen a substantial increase in new development and construction over the past year. And he has been crazy busy. He just got back from his wedding and has been inundated ever since. So he is a busy guy. We're currently working on that update for rulemaking for the timeline for the new legislation that will allow us to start collecting fees associated with that. And we'll be bringing that to you all in the October board meeting with a timeline and a framework of what that will look like and how we'll be reaching out to create the rulemaking committee. We are also reviewing multiple wind turbine projects with Odo, and Seth and I will be visiting a very large turbine site this September that we've been working really closely with Odo on and the applicant, and we're going to be pleased to bring the board a real in-depth update after that site visit and be able to bring you some photos from the site. They're very large wind turbines, the largest that the state has put up. So it should be a very interesting site visit and the first that we've actually done in coordination with them. So I'm looking forward to that. It's too bad Mark's not here. I wanted to give a tiny little update for the UAS and test range work. The UAS AUVSI Exponential Conference is happening this month, August 16th through the 19th in Atlanta. Due to travel restrictions, budget issues, staff shortages, and tons of other stuff that has been going on, Business Oregon could not continue their partnership with ODA this year, but we have been continuing to work on it. And while I won't be in attendance, Pendleton will be there in the state pavilion and will be representing UAS and all of our test range groups. McMinnville will be having their own booth, as well as Tillamook will have their own booth too. And then we have been working with a bunch of smaller businesses to make sure that they have a space in our state pavilion if they want to have a place to bring back any potential clients and customers and marketing for all Oregon UAS companies. So it's pretty exciting, and I look forward to giving you all a full update in the October meeting after this has happened. Payment obviously is made from our prior year's booth reservation. It was going to have to be used or lost. So I'm just glad that Pendleton can go and represent and help us make this a very successful conference. In your read aheads, you'll see an executive summary and full report of a statewide rates and fees study that we've finally completed. And what this study does is provide all of the information for almost all of the airports throughout the state of all of their rates and fees associated with the services they provide at those airports, from anything from fuel to hangar costs, tie downs. This will provide assistance to NIPIAS and non-NIPIAS airports alike, and also help our NIPIAS airports in compliance with their grant assurances. So this has been a long time coming, and I'm very glad that we've been able to get this completed. Martha.
Yeah, just concerned going back on the UAS conference.
Oh, sure.
And with Business Oregon funds, they are completed now, and are with basically the state of Oregon kind of handing over the UAS development to the private industry. Our continuance in the UAS and the Expo conference, I'm assuming this will be the last year we attend, or do we intend, or will the staff be kind of making a suggestion that we stay involved in this?
Well, right now, I think this is going to be the last year that we attend. And this was that holdover from the old SOAR Business Oregon money that we had been committed to making sure went to all the test ranges. If there's a request for us to provide additional support in the future, I'll bring that to the board and get the board's input on that before we make any commitments. But obviously, if we can provide service to any of the ranges outside of going to a conference, we will do that. But anything large like this, I wouldn't recommend. We need to participate unless we're requested. And with that request, I would expect whoever may make that request come to the board with that request too.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Back to the rates and fees study. So if you haven't had a chance to really immerse yourself in the study, it's pretty great. You might have had an opportunity to look at the executive summary, but the report allows you to sort, to get just a lot of really good information. So I encourage you to do so. And if you have any questions between now and the next board meeting, please email me, reach out, let me know. I'd be happy to help out, help walk you through any of your questions or get you any additional information that you guys need. Projects update. We talked a little bit about some obstruction removal at Malino, and Tony did let you know that physical obstructions can't be removed until after September because of nesting season, and we are still working on that too. We do have surveys ongoing at Chiloquin, Aurora, and Malino for the obstructions that we've been talking about over the last few months for all of those airports. The Joseph State Master Plan is ongoing, and our next public meeting is August 25th, where we should have a final draft plan presented. And this has been a really great master plan. The community involvement and the local involvement has been wonderful. And I don't have anything more to say. John, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this? It's been a really nice master plan.
I don't have anything else to add. No, I appreciate the comment.
I will bring you all a full update on the final presentation and then any additional comments that we get from the community in the October meeting, and then how it will be sent up to the FAA. And then we'll be starting some of our final reviews on that. As Betty mentioned, the FAA grants associated with the contracts for Cottage Grove and Independence work. The contracts were signed and executed, and those projects are slated to get started in September after nesting season 2. We do have larks present at a couple of those airports, and we can't do work until nesting season is complete. I'll bring a full schedule update for those 2 fencing projects to you all in October, but right now the contractors should be on their way to ordering supplies and getting all of the materials on hand and ready to go. Betty talked about the Aurora master plan kickoff, and we do anticipate the first meeting to be fully electronic. FAA Slits Bay runway rehab and electrical project. The design contract is under DOJ review, and we anticipate a kickoff later this month for that project. Andrea will be giving you a very in-depth core grants update right after this presentation. All of the 2021 projects that the board has approved are all in either grant or pre-grant agreement, and we're getting ready to start the new cycle. Connect Oregon, obviously, Betty talked about a lot too. I'm scheduling some meetings with ODOT for a full timeline for the board so that you understand what your commitments will be as the modal review committee and what that will look like. Right now, I'm anticipating a full modal board meeting in March 2022, and that meeting will be hybrid. And our pavement maintenance project is still being finalized right now, and it is slated to happen. We're getting the bid packages ready, and it will be for Ashland, Bandon, Cape Blanco, Cottage Grove, Creswell, Hobby Field, Florence, Gold Beach, Grants Pass, Myrtle Creek, Pinehurst, and Roseburg. A little finance update for this last year. Our finance group has been busy, and a huge shout out to Lisa. Lisa is the only one that makes the collection calls in our office, and it is not easy work. We have just recently, as of December, started tracking this, and since December, she's made 330 calls and has received $9,495 from those specific calls that she's made. You guys probably understand that collection calls are not the easiest to make, and a huge shout out to the time that it takes to get that done. Our registration group and her and Roger, who pays all of our bills, have really been doing a lot of work, being very thorough and updating policies too along the way. So we have been meeting on a daily basis, going through how we can update our own internal best practices. And I just can't say enough about the quality of work that's being done. Some of those include a new internal updated policy for over underpayments, some updated internal policy for drone exemptions. We talk about the requirements that we want people to provide us and documentation so that we have a manual, if you will, so that our staff can go back and look at things that we can require be provided. All of the staff has completed required trainings, and our yearly inventory is complete. One of the things that I wanted to bring you all up to speed on that hasn't been getting enough discussion is the state of Oregon is instituting a brand new procurement system statewide. This is huge and a heavy lift, and will replace how we do all of our procurements, and that's contracting, bids, RFPs, every buying thing that we do, and it will replace Orpin. And this has been a lot of meetings, a lot of trainings. It's been ongoing. Kathy, Andrea, Lisa, myself, and Kristen have been heavily involved. And then the fourth quarter of this year, there's a lot set to go live on this. So it's a big deal. And on top of everything else that's been going on, there's been this too. So you all should know that staff has just been working their tail off, getting all of these things done, and keeping up with best practices. So I just wanted to let you know how awesome and amazing that they're doing. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, and a lot of great work. And I really appreciate, trying to track down various pilots, and if they're out of state, in state, how they're doing on their registration. I totally understand what goes into that. So good, kudos to those. Lisa, who's tracking that down, good on her. And just, there's a lot going on. Just fantastic work by, plans and ops. So I appreciate it all.
Absolutely. And are there any questions?
Okay, I think you got good work there, Heather.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And next we have Andrea.
Okay, so what I see is coming up is to stay on schedule, which we're 4 minutes ahead. But I see a 30-minute lunch break. So I assume that the staff would prefer that we stay on schedule. True or false, or do you want to press? Betty, your thoughts, staff, board members?
I am okay if we press forward.
Whoops, say that again.
It's okay if we keep on trucking.
Okay, we have a keep on trucking vote out there. Betty, what do you have everybody needed to do the presentations, or do we need to pause?
Nope, we've got everybody present. We can keep
Anybody
going.
not want, anybody out there who needs to take a break? Just raise your hand. We'll go into lunch. Okay, well, I think the consensus is if we can and it's allowed, let's keep on moving.
Okay.
So that would put us at the core program update, which we love to hear about every time we get to hear any kind of updates on it at all. Kathy?
This goes to Andrea. She gets to do this presentation.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Definitely,
to present it to you
partners.
all.
Take
So
it
just
away,
one
Andrea.
moment, and I'll get my presentation going.
While she's getting that screen uploaded, we've been working so hard with our airports, and when we've sent out emails saying, hey, can you get us some information or a final report or something, people have been really good about getting stuff back to us. So the airport managers and finance people have been great partners in us being able to move things forward.
All right, are you seeing the presentation up there?
We're good.
All right, great. So thank you so much, Chair Meeker and board, for letting us present this information on the core program to you today. So I'm going to go over our updates, an overview of where we are with our open cycles, and then some information on our upcoming cycle. Here, I wanted to include a couple of pictures from Beaver Marsh. Excuse me. They were one of our 2021 core grantees, and they have finished their project. They were able to install a new wellhead and a water storage tank. And we were really excited to be able to provide a grant to them this year, as they are a very small airport, and normally they might not be able to get one of our grants, but as I'll talk about a little bit later, because of some of the CARES Act and the CRISA Act of last year, we were able to provide for our priority 2 and 3 grantees. Our most exciting news, of course, is that the fuel sunset was lifted. The fuel tax sunset was lifted. So the core program will continue to be funded. We want to thank everyone who supported that effort, and we're just really excited to be able to continue to support Oregon's airports with this grant program. Our cycle 6 is starting soon with some of the new rules that need to be put in place for HB 2434. We decided to run the program about a month early so we can get it in under these current rules, and then we'll have time to do the rulemaking, as Heather mentioned, starting in the fall and winter. Our application period will be September 1st to 24th, and our estimated funding availability is going to be about $2 million. And then one other process that we have been updating for this cycle is our ARC review. And we had some discussion with them last year about reviewing the applications as a cohort rather than individually, in order to just kind of help with if there's questions on the applications, just to be able to get some different views on how the applicants answered them, so that we can really get the best grading and information on those. So that is something that we've been working on and are planning on doing in this cycle. And then finally, your program coordinators, Kathy and I, have been assisting airports in completing and closing grants from our previous cycles to kind of clear the way so we can really focus on our upcoming cycle. So I just wanted to show you where we are on each cycle. Our very first one is completely closed. So as of June 30th, all of the grants had been closed and all the projects completed. So we were very excited to be able to close that by the end of last fiscal year. For the next cycle, 2018, we still have 3 grants that are active. We're working with those airports to hopefully get most of them closed down by the end of this year. For cycle 3, we still have 14 active grants. I'm sorry, we have 17 active grants. 3 of them are in closing stages and 6 have already closed from that cycle. Cycles 4 and 5 were unique because of the fact that most of the Priority 1 grants were received 100% funding from the FAA through the CARES Act or the CRISA Act. So for last cycle, 2020 cycle, we originally awarded 24 grants and 20 of those grantees received that 100% funding. So we have 4 grants currently in that cycle that are either in progress or pre-agreement for a total of about $600,000. And because we only ended up using $600,000 for that, we were able to move forward additional funds for the 2021 cycle last year. We also requested that the board would approve a total award amount of $2.5 million because we were anticipating that the Priority 1 grants would be funded 100% again. So we did have 20 grantees receive the 100% funding, and with the 2.5 million, we were able to fund all of our Priority 2 and 3 grants. I just can't tell you how excited we were by that, and also how excited many of our airports were about that. It was just really great to be able to give them the news, and some of them, this may be their first time they've gotten a core grant, so we've been working a lot with them on the processes. So it's been really good so far. Finally, for our a little more information on our outstanding obligations for the first 5 cycles. You can see, of course, 2017 is completely closed out. 2018, we've got 6 open grants and about not quite $99,000 in open obligations. 2019, 17 grants still open, about $321,000 in obligations. And then our 4 grants for 2020, about $433,000, and then 22 grants for 2021 at about 2.4 million outstanding right now. Our carryover we're estimating is about $655,000, and then our fuel tax revenue for core for the first half of this year was a little over 400,000. And then once again, we're estimating we should have about 2 million for our cycle coming up. And then finally here, I just wanted to give you a little timeline of the cycle. So as I said before, our application period will be September 1st to the 24th. The 24th is going to be a hard close date. So we are going to be making sure to let all of our applicants know everything must be done by September 24th, nothing after that, so that we can ensure that we keep all the applications under the current rules. After that, Kathy and I will do the completeness review on the applications, and then it goes to the ARC for review and grading through the end of this year. Finally, in January, we'll meet with the ARC to compile a list for the board, and then in February, we have our board meeting for board approval. And then Kathy and I begin the process of contacting our airports and getting those agreements going. We're just very excited to be running this next cycle, and Kathy and I currently are also just working on setting up trainings for our applicants and getting the eGrant system ready for the 22 cycle. Any questions?
Let me open it up to the board. Any questions from any board member?
I don't have any.
Okay.
No questions. Thank you. That was very nice.
Yeah, I do have a question, because we do kind of, tell me whether or not we're going to cross streams between core and connect. Connect, has first question. Will we be able to provide matching funds to a project? Can a project apply to both Connect and to core? Going to totally divest the two?
They are completely separate under statute.
Under statute, totally says. So same projects, they can't double bang.
Nope.
Okay. All right then. Well, that takes care of that question. Thank you very much.
I lost my toolbar. Is my screen still showing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I did want to go over one quick thing, and that is, I know Andrea talked about the upcoming hard date, and so did Betty. We will be starting rulemaking for the rules associated with the sunset being lifted, which is super great. And the committee that will be putting together for that too, we will start that this winter, and we'll be bringing the board more information on that, as well as the tell structure rule committee information.
Okay, super. We'd like to hear a little bit about it. You know, if you can just kind of give us a preview in the October strategic offsite, that would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's then I guess we're going on to the system aviation program, the ASAP, and talk about some motion for the board.
Let me go ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair. In your read aheads, I sent the, this is the last of the semi-annual reports to the legislature regarding the ASAP program. It's pretty much a template to fill in the blanks on how much we have allocated. And then next to it, we also include a spreadsheet that breaks down the awards that have been issued by airport. So any legislators that's going through the list can zero in on their airports and go, ooh, my airport got, and then see what they've gotten over the course of the program over the last 5 cycles. So that has been attached to you. I can open up page 1 just to see if you have any questions. Here we go. And share my screen. There it is. So what you see is basically this executive summary. Normally we file this sometime around mid-September, but we weren't sure until today. It was clear we were not going to have another board meeting until October, and this is due by the end of September. We wanted to make sure this report was completed under the current rules, and according to the date that the new House bill goes into effect is September 27th. We just want to have everything wrapped up with a bow before that date. Hence also the closing date for the core grant applications. Everything needs to be done there. So everything after September 27th will be under the new rules, and the monies collected under the new rules, the new legislation are those from January 1, 2022 going forward. So just want to kind of clarify that. So with the board's permission, I would like your approval of this report with the note that the totals expended here, and this will just be for probably the last 2, will be updated as of the date of submission. So these numbers were as of last week, and this may have changed slightly. So I'll give them the most current information is my thought. But that would be the only change. I don't expect this number to change significantly, but it's mostly to make sure that we are accurate here. And with that, I'd like to see if there's any questions.
All righty, I'll open up to the board. Pretty straightforward. Just a review by the numbers.
No question.
No questions.
No questions.
Okay, then, pretty simple vote. Do I have a motion for the board to approve the ASAP report to the legislature as per 8th House Bill 2075?
I make a motion to approve as presented.
I have a first.
Seconded.
I have a first motion by Tom, second motion by Hilda. All those in favor of approving the ASAP report to the legislator say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion is passed. Thank you very much. And now, Tony, I think it's up to you. a little bit about how we're doing at our airports out there.
Yeah, good morning again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Happy to present an update on what we've been up to at our state airports this summer. Let me share my screen. Okay, are you seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So I am going to come back to this photo here in a little bit. It's been a very busy summer. Here's an update on our impacts the wildfires have had on our airports. Right now, the Toketee and the Oak Ridge state airports are closed for firefighting activities. The Chiloquin Airport is being used for firefighting activities, but it is open and that is ongoing. And then the Joseph State Airport was being used for some fires, the Elbow Creek fire, but it is now just back to normal status. I have some exciting but sad news on some staff changes. Don Hankwitz, our operations specialist, is retiring with more than 19 years of service for the Department of Aviation. And he will be hugely missed. He's been very helpful, especially just in my short time with the department, and both bringing me up to speed and getting things done. So we will unfortunately be saying goodbye to Don and wishing him the best in his retirement soon. We also have gone out for recruitment to fill this posting, and we have offered for a candidate. They've accepted, but it's still a little bit early to say any more than that at this time. Finally, our new truck, and just yesterday took delivery of our new equipment. This is replacing a 98 International truck. It's 23 years old, and so this new truck will greatly help us maintain our airports more efficiently and reliably. It should be going out on its first trip to the coast next week. As we've mentioned earlier in this meeting, that we have had some equipment and other staff issues that have just made us put us a little bit behind in getting to some of our airports for maintenance, but this should help us tremendously. In our last meeting, I had shared an update that Bob Ament, retired airport manager from Ontario, Oregon, was planning a trip to Owyhee Reservoir State Airport, and this is the airport that can only be accessed by by air or by water. And he was organizing this event with a local scout troop, and so they've shared more photos of that. And these photos are courtesy of Angelina Katanis of the Malheur Enterprise. And it just looks like it, and from what I'm told, it was a great event. They cleaned up anything not natural to the area. They did this in 2 different flights with Cub Scouts from the area. It was both a cleanup exercise for the airport and an educational exercise for the Scouts in aviation. And so just really appreciate all of the Scouts' efforts, and the Scoutmaster is Victor Noble, and then those efforts of Bob Ament for flying them into the airport. Really appreciate it. In other community support, Noreen Bowden, who's active with the Oregon Pilots Association and AOPA, they have installed a name sign for the Cascade Locks Airport. This is on the backside of our existing airport informational sign. And in this way, the airport can be identified from the street, where previously that was not the case. So I think that's a huge improvement, and really appreciate their efforts to help improve the Cascade Locks State Airport. It has been a very busy summer with fly-ins again, finally. Very happy to see these coming back after a hiatus last year. So this is the Pacific City State Airport. The 99s hosted this event with along with some help with the Friends of Pacific City State Airport, and this was in the morning just after the marine layer fog had just worn off, so people or airplanes were just arriving. It was a very nice event, and it was very nice that some people had opened up their hangars to host it. And then at Cottage Grove, the same afternoon, this was the same weekend of the record heat wave, and so people had flown in, and this was a very well attended event. This was the Wings and Wheels fly-in, hosted by the Oregon Aviation Historical Society and Museum. And there were lots of unique and beautiful aircraft and vehicles. Really great event as well. And then I had also mentioned the fly-in at Joseph State Airport last month. Allow me to spoil you with some more photos. This was in the morning on Saturday at Joseph on the 10th. And this was also an incredible event. Lots and lots of beautiful aircraft and vehicles, lots of people. I took way more photos than I could share today. So I tried to find just a select few. This was in the morning. They had a color guard for the national anthem, and then a jet flyby. Again, just a wonderful event. There was a large pancake feed, lots of people. And then again, people opening up their hangars for the event. This case, this was an educational hangar from the Northeast Oregon Aviation Foundation. And this was that aircraft in my opening slide where they had some components of the aircraft labeled so that kids could learn more about what the aircraft is and what all the different pieces do. They also had a flight simulator set up on a computer, and then on this table toward the right, they were making paper airplanes and learning about flight and all that. So really wonderful, wonderful event. I personally had a great time. And then this was a picture of the STOL, the short takeoff and landing competition. And then on the 31st of July was the Jim Wright Memorial Steerman Fly-In at the Cottage Grove State Airport, hosted by the Oregon Aviation Historical Society and Museum. I'm told there, I personally couldn't make it, but I'm told there were 15 steermen and about 150 people that ate at the pancake feed. And I'm also told there were biplane rides that kept the pilot busy all morning. So just really great to see people getting out, enjoying aviation, and see these events coming back. We do have a couple other events on the horizon. At Independence State Airport is the EAA Chapter 292. They're hosting a fly-in and stall event on August 14th and August 15th. And then at the Cottage Grove State Airport on September 4th is going to be the Oregon Aviation Historical Society, the Great Home Built event. And I'm looking forward to those as well. Are there any questions?
Okay, let me open it up to any board member.
Just want to say thank you for the pictures.
It's good to see it all coming back.
They are fantastic photos, by the way, and it just kind of reminds us, this is kind of why the board is here, out there, people enjoying the Oregon aviation system. So fantastic work, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that kind of brings us into board updates. And for that, I would like to address the board a little bit on, we need to fill Mark Peters' old spot. And the reason I want to tee this up with y'all is generally the board has come to a consensus kind of on some of the characteristics that we would like in a new board member if everything works out perfectly. We've always had, for the last, I think, a couple of board cycles, we've always had a UAS representative. I'm not for sure if we need a UAS representative to come in now that, government funding through Business Oregon that had fallen to ODA, that has now dried up. But I'll leave it, kind of up to discussion on characteristics we'd like. I would say that I asked Betty to take a look at the residences of all the board members over the last decade, since 2000 or 2010, excuse me. As Oregon statute, Oregon administrative rule ask that the board reflect membership for the various regions in Oregon. That's why you have somebody in Portland and somebody down in Klamath and somebody over in Joseph. So that's actually in administrative rule that we reflect the various regions within Oregon. Over the last decade, we have not had a single board member from the coast. I'm not for sure how that happened. It just may be a confluence of events if we couldn't find anybody who was interested, or I don't know. But I would think that perhaps it would be nice to have somebody from the coast, since they haven't had representation in over the last 10 years. And, when Mary left us, she was also a great individual because she had OPA experience. So it was kind of nice to have somebody who had been in a leadership position in the Oregon Pilots Association, as that brought that to us as well. So I'm going to kind of be quiet and see what the board members think on some of the general characteristics that we think we need and that we should give the staff, and as we ask fellow aviators out there to maybe take a look at joining the board, what kind of characteristics do you want them to bring to us? Do you like, we specifically went after John because he was an airport manager. We've always had an airport manager on the board. Do you want another airport manager? Do you want a bush pilot? That's, Doug filled bush pilot recreational flying. Tom, you filled the general not the commercial aviation experience need. Where do we see our holes at?
Any person who has perhaps a broad range of aviation in different aspects of aviation could be very helpful, I think.
I think the educational side of things,
you cut out
even the new upcoming electric aircraft type of that focus.
And John, can you say that one more time? My internet's going in and out, so I didn't hear any of that.
I'm sorry. So the electric aircraft, or alternate fuels aircraft type of activity, or educational, or the educational side of things. Hilda may be a part of that as well.
Okay.
But I think the coast would be a good idea as well. Someone from the coast.
Okay.
It would be nice to have someone that has a corporate manufacturing industry.
So a little bit of history. Okay, all right. So a broader knowledge. If we can find some industry, it's hard to get industry because they can't. It's trying to get them to make our meetings is a little interesting because they're busy running a corporation. But maybe we can find somebody that's got some time now, especially that we're doing more Zoom meetings. Okay, so we'll continue to flesh this out. Talk it up with your neighbors, those folks you see, that anybody who has an interest in the aviation board. We do try to make sure that we represent the region. So it's the coast and Columbia River Gorge. Neither one of those two have had any representation in the last decade. And then, of course, we got the governor's request for variation among board members as well. So. All right, well, that's all I have. We have the upcoming strategic session in October. Oh, I did want to address this. It looks like the governor has put, if the staff has a meeting, we're back to masks. Kind of indicates that we're going kind of retrograding back on the COVID front. We have we have a kind of a issue with funding for staff travel. I would like to propose perhaps that we move the October offsite. It's really hard to have a full day offsite with members who aren't there, over Zoom, but your thoughts on going to Zoom versus maybe just moving it to Salem, so that my concern is that we book rooms at John Day, and then at the last moment we have to pull out, and we either put the individual who is the owner of those rooms, we short them, or we end up having to pay for them, and then we don't go to John Day on top of it. I'm just concerned about putting us at some risk about logging in John Day right now in October. Betty, your thoughts?
Eventually, we would really like to get back to in-person, but right now, virtual may be what we need to do, maybe for the next 2 meetings, and then starting in January, February, get back to in-persons. The February board meeting may coincide with Oregon Airport Managers Annual Conference. That's also the one where the board will be considering granting the core grants. And so I'd sure like to have that one at least in person. For the next 2 meetings, the October one and then the December one, I have kind of mixed feelings. I'd love to get out to see John Day and see all of the things that Haley has done with her airport, but maybe we hold that off until next year. And then we continue to do these meetings, the next few, virtual or a virtual blend. Kathy is looking at the technology that would allow us to do both, to do, on-site and virtual at the same time for members that, visitors who want to participate in our meetings virtually. That's one of the nicest things about virtual meetings is we can get people from all 4 corners of the state can observe and participate in when we're doing them virtually, and not having to do the 5 or 7 hour drive, across the state to get to Salem. And I also want to be respectful of board member Barcelow's time in that for the October meeting, he has other commitments and would not be able to do an in-person, but could do a virtual meeting. And then I also I want to be respectful of the staff's time in that if this was a 3-day meeting or 2.5 days, then that's a significant commitment of staff time as well. And personally, from an efficiency and from a budget standpoint, which unfortunately we have to consider right now, it would make more sense from staff's perspective to hold it virtually if we could. But I will defer to the preferences of the board as to whether you want to do it, continue to do a couple more virtual and see where we're going, or if we want to try to do some in-persons here in Salem. So that's kind of my preference. So
let me open it up. Anybody? I don't think I have any preference or not preference, any disagreement with having a board meeting. I think we've shown that we can do that. My only concern is having this, a strategic offsite where we spend, 6 hours talking about, future things that are really big items to us. Are we comfortable doing that over Zoom? It may be that we have to, or we could move it to we could move our strategic offsite to January when perhaps we could meet. I'm kind of ambivalent because I'm not sure in January we'll be able to meet in person. Let me hear from you guys.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I want to let you know, to follow up on something Betty said, that state agencies are becoming equipped now for hybrid meetings. That is a growing area of training and equipment. So that is something that we're going to be practicing on how to do. So whatever the natural disaster is, from COVID to whatever ice and weather and so forth, that we will be able to offer that as an option going forward, so that if we are having an in-person meeting, we can still hybrid it. So a board member who has a limitation for whatever reason will still be able to participate, and so will the public.
And that's great. I think that's a super way to go. It's just, you just lose when you get to a board meeting, like a strategic session once a year, you lose out on
different.
Beforehand, you lose out on the conversation and just being able to, reestablish bonds and friendship and discuss and, It's just harder to do, but it's just the age we're in right now.
And
Let me
we
hear from
have-
other board members.
Oh,
Let me hear from other board members. Hilda?
I'm all for the hybrid. If we can make it in person, that I think would be very healthy as far as stimulating discussion and bringing out more points that we probably cannot bring out in a virtual environment.
Okay, if we have to go to a full Zoom just because of October, because of having to mask up and stuff like that, do you have the technology to stay with us for like a 6-hour strategic session in October? You're my one concern because I know you're out there where internet is not the best.
I can acquire a hotspot, or I can camp out near where there's Wi-Fi.
Okay. All right then. Tom, your thoughts on having a Zoom 6-hour strategic session, or however long it's going to be in October?
I think with everything's just literally changing daily. So I do believe that trying to do anything in John Day is probably going to be off the board, but I would be open to giving the hybrid a try, or Zoom if it has to be, but
Okay.
just whatever it takes, really.
And John, you're out there in the hinterlands of Klamath without your operations manager or deputy, I understand.
Right. I think, like Betty said, it is a long drive for me to John Day, and I appreciate, I'd love to do a hybrid. I personally, I really am anti-Zoomer, and I've done it for a long time, and and I know we'll continue to do so. But if I had a preference, I like being side by side, being able to talk to people and talk about other things as well. And then if you get to know people better, the conversation becomes a little more easy. And so that's my perspective, but I'm okay with, whenever we can do it. The October board meeting is tough because one of my other staff is also gone. And so I'm pretty much here. So I really can't travel at this point in time.
All right, so it looks like we can probably, I hate to fold on John Day, and we owe them a future visit. So please pass along that we will be there in 2022, COVID allowing. But I think probably financially it would be responsible. I just hate to hang out the hotel owner. I'd hate to back out, with 10 days notice. That's just not fair to them. So I think we pull from John Day and retrograde to Salem, and then we'll just have to maybe play it by ear between a hybrid or just a full Zoom. What do you think, Betty?
I do want to mention, we have a note in the chat from Becky Breckenridge, who's the OPA president. And it says, I would appreciate continuing the virtual portion of future meetings.
Okay.
So, either a virtual or the hybrid, I think would achieve that.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that they have the board meeting via Zoom, maybe let anybody come on. I think that's just a standard now. But I think going forward, like I said, getting the board together, that's for the boards, that's their session on the strategic session the day before the board meeting. So that's what I'm focused on right now, is how do we get that to be the best session that we possibly can. Okay. I would consider, how about we do this right now? Let's think about maybe doing a hybrid. And for those folks who can travel to Salem, Tom, maybe I could actually meet you in person. Wouldn't that be unique?
Well, that would be unique. We could just do it in the hangar.
So for that strategic session, maybe we can have a few folks show up in Salem, and then, John, I hear you'll probably have to Zoom in. So we'll test the hybrid model for the strategic session. And then do you want to have a board meeting hybrid, or do you want to go for just a full Zoom on the board meeting the following day? Can we try a hybrid there as well?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Yes, please.
What do you think, Kathy? Will we be ready to try the hybrid?
Yeah, I'll be ready. I'm going to be doing some practices with the equipment, see what we need to do. But once we've done the hybrid planning session, hybrid or in person really isn't going to make a whole lot of difference for the board meetings. So let's give it a whirl. And if we get told we have to walk it back a little bit, it's still the same login either way.
Okay, that's easy enough. Just means that I don't get to go and spend the night in Salem, which is kind of a bummer because I really enjoy Salem.
And just one caveat, for those that are going to be on site, we still have distancing and masking requirements. So if we hold it here in the ODA office building in our conference room, it's capacity limited. And so I noticed on this meeting today, we had about 30 participants. We would not be able to accommodate 30 people anywhere in the ODA building and still maintain that. I think we would struggle to have 5 or 6 people in that conference room and still be able to maintain distancing. So if we have it here, we'll look for an alternate venue that's bigger so that more people, if they want to be in person, that we can accommodate that. If we're going to do the hybrid.
Let me ask you this, Betty. So distancing requirements are still there?
And
Okay.
masking for us, yes.
Okay, I'm just going to make the recommendation we go Zoom because it's ridiculous to have everybody 6 feet apart. We would have to have an auditorium sized meeting and then I couldn't be able to hear the person that's at the other end of the auditorium anyway. So with the distancing thing, that throws, I knew there was mask requirements. I didn't realize it was distancing was still there. All right, so I'm going to make a recommendation. We just go all Zoom. And it just mean the strategic session the day before will be a 6-hour marathon Zoom. So make sure you get good internet connection. Board thoughts? Anybody disagree with that? All right, so we're Zooming in October. I want to go on the record that I never want to have another strategic session by Zoom if we ever have to. Next 2022, I would like to actually meet Tom Kruger some point in person, shake his hand.
Okay.
It's my goal in life. It's a simple one, but I have a goal.
Okay. Well, we're going to hope for the February board meeting, if in conjunction with OAMA, where you're going to do that, hand out the grants. We would really, really like to have that one in person and all board members to be able to attend that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what COVID gives us. So we're Zooming in October and we'll get a schedule for October going up. Board members, I owe you some on Betty's feedback. I'll give you what I have. And generally I will draw up a template. And then if you guys want to add your own verbiage, you can add your own verbiage. If you just want to approve what I write up or modify, we'll come to a team effort and then we'll just get face to face and we'll go. It's not a really big, huge issue per se. Went pretty well last time, but more to follow on that. And then we'll get a full up agenda fleshed out, probably coming at you in the next couple of weeks on what we think we're going to cover in that 6 hours, long-term strategic session. Some of the bigger items that we want to focus going on into the next decade, roles, overall goals, those kind of things.
And then as a reminder, I'm going to have Kathy poll you on your availability in the next 2 weeks for an executive and possible regular session to discuss the legal issues.
Okay. And John, did I hear you? Was that?
No, I was just going to suggest that. I'm just going to say that I'm out of the office from the 23rd, 24th, 25th through the 27th. So
Okay.
23rd through the 27th, I'm out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'm hearing, it seems to be that we need a meeting sooner than later because it seems like folks have plans coming up toward the end of the month.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to recap, Chair.
You bet.
Okay, just make sure I've got this. So yes, I will be reaching out to the board on availability. Looks like we have a very limited window. So I'll try to find as many little nooks and crannies that I can and that will be a one agenda item meeting.
Mhm.
So there are some other things, since it will be a regular session. If there are other things that need to be dealt with, they can be put into the agenda at this point. We are not limited because it's not a special or emergency session. So just want to let you and Director Stansbury know that. The items I have, my planning for the October regular session board meeting will be an update on where we are with the Joseph Master Plan, and that will be getting to get packaged off for review. It's not an approval, this is what we've got, and then the FAA will do their thing. And then a presentation on what the rulemaking processes are going to look like, more of a calendar. These are the steps for the 2 rulemakings we have to undertake for the tall structures and for the ASAP programs. So those are come with the 2 ads today that I already had on top of the list. And then we'll bring back the tall structure determination fees in October as well. Was there anything else that the board want to make sure that we have in our planning list?
That's it for now. I'm sure the staff will add some, and then we will, once we get into the strategic session the day before, there'll be some topics fleshed out there as well, I'm sure.
Okay.
More to follow.
Work in progress, but I just want to make sure my list reflected what the board direction to staff was today.
You've got everything that I have on my list.
Fabulous. Okay. Oh, and then one question, we had talked about doing a UAS test range update. This was requested by former board member Mark Peters. Is that still direction to the board to include that in the October board meeting?
Okay.
So that's a question mark to you.
Will we have anything worth updating?
Yes, Kathy and board chair, I will have an update from the exponential conference and some outreach that I'm doing with all of the ranges right now. It won't be long. It'll just maybe be 5-10 minutes.
Okay, that works.
Got it. Okay, that was the only question I had on my little planning list.
Okay, Betty, any staff, anything out there that we missed or you need to make us aware of? Board members, any last reattacks? Okay, well, with that, I do believe that be looking for the doodle poll on when we can meet. And with that, I believe we are concluded. So let me adjourn this meeting and have a great day. And I'll be talking to you all in maybe a week or 2. Thank you very much.